What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious along with Justin Total Package and Craig the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, my man. Just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic, Lex Luger, 1991. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. And check our exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast. On social media, can you give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast?
We did a Legacy of Luger, did we not? It was before the video. It was on the audio. And you know, I feel the same way about Luger that I feel about Sid. Let me explain. Okay. I just think that it's easy to talk about their flaws, but when we talk about like Sid's charisma, which Luger didn't have a lot of charisma, but like Luger had a body that we all were like, dude, this guy's a star. Like his body was so good. And like, he looked like just a star. People were like, he's got to be WCW's version of Hogan. And they tried it, but Flair never wanted to pull the trigger, which this year kind of is a result of like, they finally went with him, but he didn't get to beat Flair. And like, it's just kind of, that's always been Luger's MO. And Sid the same way. It's like when WWF got desperate, and the Shawn Michaels experiment wasn't working. He didn't want to go back to Brett, and Austin hadn't fully developed yet. It was like Sid wins a title, and we're like, "Fuck! Why didn't he do that a long time ago? He looks awesome with the belt. He has an amazing body. Sid did. Sid has tons of charisma.
I know we're not talking about Sid the whole time, but that belt.
But I mean, like, I feel
perfectly.
like him and Luger are the same way, and it's like
physically,
they both won a couple world titles, so they won world titles. Like, I mean, they're like, listen, like. You know, these are legit Hall of Famers, and I know people still stutter step with Luger. I'm like, how? Like, he is a lot. I think he's better than what we give him credit for because it's easy. Just everybody cites the Yokozuna thing, the Yokozuna flop, the American Express, or the Lex Luger Express, or whatever whatever they called it, U.S. Express.
A lot of people have that. A lot of
Lex
people have
Express
those flops, like. Yeah,
Lex Express. Fuck, how did I not remember that? Like, you know, and that failed.
You said U.S. Express.
Well, I'm trying every name. I'm like the Hacksaw Express, the fucking Shawn Michaels. Like, I couldn't get it right. But like
Luger Rail,
the Snake Express,
Lube Track, Luber. Fuck.
The Luber bus. Everybody knows. Like, so I don't understand. Like, it's just he gets a bad rap, and like this year is kind of like this like for some reason. Flair lost to everybody. He lost to Kerry Von Erich because one of the brothers died, and so it was like a consolation thing. Flair would lose to everybody. Ronnie Garvin, it's fine. You want Ronnie Garvin to beat me? He's the world champion. So like he fucking beats him. But then like when it came to Luger, Flair's like not so much. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like I don't understand. Like why? Like and I get it. Luger didn't come from the same roots that like a Garvin did or whatever, and like people respected a lot of that stuff. This was Luger came along kind of at the tail end of the all the territories and all that stuff, and then Crockett sold to WCW, and like, you know, the NWA lineage started to die, and like so Luger was sort of like, I mean, he came around in 86, 87, but like he didn't like I think if Luger started wrestling in the 70s, I think he probably would want a shitload of world titles. But I think like later, like they were the people like Flair. If you were not in the WWF, like in the late 80s, early 90s, you were very like, we need to keep the territories alive. We're old school. We're physical, my God, like, and all that. And I think Luger just didn't fit. He didn't have a wrestling pedigree. He admittedly came in for the money, like Nash. Like, you know, we'd find Nash did that later. He didn't have a wrestling background. He didn't like anything.
He just had the body, and he was just
And so this year, to me, totally like kind of encapsulates like his fucking run. Even though later in 97, he actually, when he beat Hogan on Nitro, that was a fucking awesome moment. That's one of my favorite Nitro moments ever. And it was Luger. It wasn't Sting. It wasn't anybody else. It was fucking Luger, who was over as fuck during the Monday Night Wars. His wrestling, if you ever could say he was a good wrestler, he was better back in this day. Like when Luger wrestled in 96, 97, I fucking hated his in-ring work. He was over as fuck. He would go out there and they put him on a prelim and on a Nitro. And when he would rack somebody, I sent you guys a clip months ago of when he was trying to get that big guy Roadblock up, and he kept dropping him, but the crowd didn't boo him. Like if someone botches now or even botches 10 years ago, you fucked up. You fucked up. They got more behind Luger every time he botched the torture.
Come on, man.
He's just really
do
fat, Lex. He's just super fat. You can do it. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
And he did it.
It's crazy. Luger had this thing, and nobody wanted to really capitalize on it unless they were super desperate. Then they're like, let's put on Luger. Like, and it's weird. It's really
insane.
weird. Like, because I don't think he had less than like the Warrior. I don't think he had any less than. I think Luger was probably a little easier to get along with. Like, than the Warrior.
I'd argue that Luger was better than Warrior in there. I mean, he wouldn't get gassed so quickly.
But I know we're getting way off, and Dave, you could start. I know, but it's just like it's just weird to me. Like Luger is in this thing, and some people to this day will still even be like, I mean, they'll put him. The reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame is he doesn't belong there. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't understand. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like,
again, there's people in the hall that you don't even know, and you're upset about Luger possibly being in there. There's people you don't even.
It's weird. It's weird.
There's people that have never held a WWE World Title that are in the hall. Like, come on.
Yeah. So Luger's not.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Luger came out of 1990, ending his third U.S. title reign, a record-setting 527 days. That's something saying too. By losing it to Stan Hansen at Halloween Havoc 1990 and beginning his fourth reign by defeating the same Stan Hansen at Starrcade 1990. Stan Hansen's name is everywhere in the wrestling business.
And it was really weird. It's like they didn't want to pull the trigger on Luger, but they were just like, we'll give him the secondary title, like their version of the IC title. And they did. And Luger was a really good U.S. champion every time he had it. And it was just like people, but it's weird. Whenever they start talking about Luger on the world title picture, people are like, but he can't wrestle. I'm like, oh, time out. Like, I think you're wrong. Like, I just think that, I mean, I don't think he's the best wrestler, but I think he did everything he needed to do. There's a lot of times we go back and review shit, especially his feud with Brian Pillman. I know you got to look at the opponent and give them credit too, but we're like, that was a fucking match. Like, there's been a lot of Luger matches that we go back and watch. We're like, that was fine. Yeah. Like, that was fine.
You have to be passable to wrestle 30 minutes, 25 minutes with Sting and with Flair and with Road Warriors and Steiners
and
do that. Arn Anderson and Simmons and he wasn't fantastic. He wasn't a ring general by any means, but he.
Jess said it earlier, Craig. If he didn't have to call the match, he wasn't calling it. Like if it was Sting or Flair, he wasn't going to call that match.
I never gave him any credit back in the day. I would be the first to shit on Luger. I think we all did. But yes, Jess is absolutely right. The more we review this in our latter years, we're like, he was okay. We gave him a hard fucking time.
Yeah,
because he was terrible on the mic and. Rumors. We'd heard rumors. It was kind of difficult backstage too, but it's like he just always was.
Joe and I, so many times we just watch, a random pay per view with Luger on it back in the day, back in the early '90s, and when he would walk out, we're like, God, fucking Luger looks awesome. Like it's just all the time, all the time.
It's huge. During that reign, beating Stan Hansen in the Starrcade of 1990. WCW rebranded the championships that they own and controlled, and the title was renamed the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. That is a mouthful.
Pleasure watching.
Luger started 91 in a feud with Dan Spivey, who he defeated at Wrestle War to retain that U.S. title. Following their match, Nikita Koloff was to present a new championship belt to Luger. During the ceremony, he suddenly attacked the champion, reigniting their feud from
giving this to you.
Oh, good grief! What's he doing?
It did not last long, however, as Koloff found himself being pushed into an angle with Sting instead of Luger, which began at Super Brawl 1, Return of the Rising Sun, when Sting and Luger challenged the Steiner brothers for the WCW World Tag Team Championship.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated Match of the Year, by the way, in 1991, Sting and Luger against, and it was an excellent match. If I encourage everybody to go back, it was May of 91, Super Brawl. First ever Super Brawl. It was a good, really excellent tag team match. Like, it was really good. And Nikita ran down and tried to hit Sting with the chain at the end of that match, and Luger pushed him out of the way.
It was intended for Luger, right? I thought.
No, it was intended for Sting. Oh, no, you're right. Yes, it was intended for Luger. That's right. Yeah, sorry, it was backwards. They set the feud up, which is weird. I even thought as a fan back then, too, Mike, why did they shift gears? Like, it was really weird. Like, he was on a crash course with challenging Luger, which, like Dave said, called back to their feud. And then he went down to, and of course, Sting's the forever babyface, right? So he pushes Luger out of the way, and then Nikita hits him. And then they feuded for the whole summer. And Luger kind of floundered until, Dave will talk about what was in the plans for him.
Sting pushed his own partner out of the way. Koloff had that chain around his arm. Sting saved Luger from getting nailed, but Sting just got popped right in the face.
Hammered. Brother, he got hammered right there. No.
That's it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the winners and still WCW World Tag Team Champions, the Steiner Brothers.
Sting has been busted open.
It was finally going to happen, as Dave will read on,
Yeah.
and it did.
Luger actually began to challenge Ric Flair for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship after becoming #1 contender by defeating the Great Muta on the June 14th, 1991 Clash of Champions 15, Knoxville, 15, Knoxville, USA. Luger's title match against Flair was to be contested at the Great American Bash in a steel cage match, which had added stipulation that should Flair get disqualified, he would lose the title. The match never occurred as Flair began to have disagreements with Jim Herd as head of WCW over his future and salary. He eventually quit the company and being stripped of that title in the process, and he took the world title belt with him. That was a big. I don't know how we can't talk about this. This belt.
Well, that's why I chose this year, by the way, because a lot of people just think of Herd and Flair not getting along, but Luger was the guy. Flair even said in his book, he was like, I was finally going to drop it to Luger because Herd never liked Flair. And he thought that when you look back, I will still make fun of Herd till no end. But when you look back, he didn't know how to do it. But they did need to move on from Flair. It's 1991. It wasn't fucking 1981. And they had to figure something out. Turner had bought them at the end of 88. WCW just got worse and worse in 90 and 91, and they just didn't fight. And then they were letting all their big stars go. In 90, they had to let the Road Warriors go because Herd didn't want to pay him because he was on a budget. Someone from Turner was like watching over everything going, this company has to profit. And that's a lot of people don't listen, what's Herd going to not take? This majorly high, I don't know how much Herd made a year, but like he made a lot of money to go in there and try to turn WCW around. And yes, he didn't know what he was doing. And no, he wasn't a wrestling guy. But like he had the thing of like, listen, Flair's not working anymore. He might have been big in the NWA. He might have been big in Crockett. They're not working. He had to let Road Warriors go because they wanted too much money. He had to and that's when the PNNewses started coming in, all the big Joshes and all that, because he was like, well, he tried to copy the WWF, which was his downfall. But like he wanted Flair gone because he's like, listen, we were great back then, but fucking drop the shit. Like, and I think that was the whole, and Flair, was at a point in his life where he was just like, he was insecure. He didn't feel appreciated. Like the guy had fucking Flair cut his hair and all this stuff.
I was gonna say he wanted to rebrand him as Spartacus. Is that right?
Yes. It was like one of the ideas.
That's right.
Everyone says that he said it to Flair to piss Flair off. Like people are like, he really wasn't going to make him Spartacus, but when he got Flair to cut his hair, he was just like, oh yeah, you look like Spartacus. And then he was doing it to be a dick to Flair. And it's just
interesting.
You had this backstage turmoil. Flair was older. Like he didn't look like the Flair of old. And then finally, like Herd was like, no, put it on Luger. Like Luger looks big. He looks like this comic book character coming to life. Let's run with him. Let's give him a shot. And Flair was like, that's fine. I'll lose to him. And Flair already made the decision. I'm leaving. And so Herd's like, cool, we'll drop the belt to Luger. He's like, I will, as soon as you give me, back in the day, that big gold belt, if you were the champion.
Give me that deposit back, yeah.
Yeah, you put a $10,000 deposit down because you traveled with it. So if you lost it, the company didn't want to be liable for it. So they had $10,000 of your money that they kept in case you lost the belt or it got damaged or stolen or whatever. So Flair's like, give me my deposit back and I'll drop the belt. And Herd's like, nope, drop the belt first. And then blah, blah, blah. And then this high school fight broke out of just, no, you did. Like, and all that. So then Flair just said, fuck it. I'm not losing it to anybody. And then he's like, fine, lose it to Wyndham. And Flair's like, I'll lose it to Wyndham. That's fine. I'll lose it to whoever you want. But give me my money. And Herd's like, fuck you. It's our belt. You're not getting any money. And then so he just let Flair fucking walk. And he let Flair walk with the title. And Vince is like, you got what now? And Flair's like, I still have the big gold belt. And he's like, you bring that shit on TV. Like, and so that's the thing. And here's why I make fun of Jim Herd. It wasn't letting Flair go. I think that was time. It was time to happen, right? Like, and we got Flair on WWF television, which, he made history. And so,
fantastic in 92, yeah.
What Herd fucked up on was not even letting Flair go with the belt. To me, should have booked immediately going, okay, They're on WWF television right now saying Flair's the real world champion. Why is he the real world champion? Because he's got our fucking belt. We are the real company. Now, obviously they weren't. WWF was way bigger, but I mean, that's what you book. So you just you answer them on television going, you are right. He is over there on the other channel saying he's a real world champion. That's right. He is the real world champion. He is bigger than Hulk Hogan. He is bigger than that little piece of shit belt over there that they have. He has the real world title because he wrestled in WCW. That's why. So you know what, Flair? Right. You can keep that fucking belt. Like, we're going to make a new belt. And that's all they had to do. And they would have neutered Vince. And Vince would have been like, just fucking take the stupid belt off fucking TV. Just mail it back to him. Like, and which... Yeah, instead they
Vince is like, I'll give you the 10,000 just to
like exactly. Instead they fought it in court and they didn't acknowledge it, and that's where they went wrong here. Like, it wasn't that they let Flair go; it was time.
It's petty. It's just petty.
It was time, but unfortunately, we're talking about Luger here. He didn't get the fucking dude he deserved.
Didn't get
all
the rub.
These years, like he didn't get to beat Flair because Flair promised Sting the title in '90.
So here's what happens, right? So with the WCW World Heavyweight Championship now vacant, Barry Windham is the number 2 contender and was set to face Luger in a cage match at the Great American Bash in '91. During that match, Harley Race and Mr. Hughes came to ringside. While Hughes kept Windham's attention, Race told Luger now is the time to perform a pile driver on the distracted Windham. Luger did so and won the match, thereby winning his first WCW World Heavyweight Championship, as Flair still had the original championship belt and the new belt was not ready in time. Luger initially wore the NWA Western States Heritage Championship, which had been altered to resemble the world title. How cheap can
That's
we
crazy.
get?
Race was a master of the pile driver. Hardy Race said now is the time. He's got him up on the pile driver. And there he planted it. Luger with the pile driver. He's hooked the leg. And Luger wins it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, the Total Package,
It was awful. And that's another thing, too. It's like, how do you... I know Flair left a couple weeks before, but how do you not just go out and buy a replica belt? Or go anywhere. How do you
not have 2 of them? How do you not have fucking 2 of them?
Well, yeah. Well,
every champ gets one. Like, what the fuck? How do you not have multiples already ready to go?
And for people who don't know, so here Luger held the belt up real quick and pulled it down because he didn't want people to see. It was the Western. So what they did was they got a gold plate, almost like a square. They just riveted it to the plate of the belt, and it said WCW World Champion in the lamest Times Roman or whatever font that you could see. And it was awful. And Luger, because everybody pauses it now, and they're like, "Look at that shit! Look at this fucking company!" Not knowing. That's why Jim Herd got fired.
And by the way, why do we need interference to take out?
So, well, this is another one. I'm fucking glad you brought that up.
Why can't you just have?
It's not even
Luger
that they decided finally to go with Luger. But looking back on it, I actually am okay with this. They were like, we need a heel. Flair's gone, so let's make Luger the heel. And that was their big thing. They could have easily just said, let's let Luger be the next Hogan, and just let him wear the title, and we'll see where he goes. But instead, they're like, okay, we don't have Flair anymore. We don't have all this. What if we make Lex a heel? And we don't have a babyface right now that's going to be we don't know who our babyface is going to be. Let's put the title on him. Let's give him the belt finally. People know who he is. We'll put Race in his corner, and we'll put Hughes as his bodyguard, and they'll be heel little faction, little trio thing. And looking back, I'm like, that was smart. The problem is you don't have the original belt. You let Flair leave the way he left. You didn't try to... Now, they didn't bring up the WCW title until a couple months later when Flair's no-compete clause ended, 2 months later or whenever it was. So right away, they didn't know that WWF was going to show the belt. But at the same time, you could have just been you know what? Let's just fucking get an old tag belt or something that looks cool. Not the fucking Western States Heritage. And then, they put it on Luger. A lot of people were like, fuck. So you finally put the belt on Luger. Flair fucks you over 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. You have to scramble, re-hype the main event. You have this main event that was supposed to be Luger and Flair, hyped the whole time, and then you switch it and put Windham in there, who hadn't really been a top contender for the title, even though they said he was number 2, which is not true. So they fuck it up, and then Luger turns heel. So they end the pay-per-view. Not only is Great American Bash 91 considered one of the worst WCW pay-per-views of all time, they ended it on a horrible note. Like where Luger wins the title and they're like, there you go. And Luger's just heel. And people are like, we don't know if we want him to be heel. But like it's afterwards, it started to make sense. You're going to read on. I like the way they rebuild it. I like the way Dusty booked a lot of stuff in WCW in late 91 because it started to get momentum and the Dangerous Alliance come at the end of the year. But it was just really I wasn't mad at Jim Herd for letting Flair go. I was mad at him for being just so dumb afterwards, not trying to capitalize on anything. And then 2 months later when they started showing the belt on WWF television, not capitalizing, going, even they call us the real world, organization. They could have easily done that. And Vince would have been like, fucking abort fucking ship. Like,
that would have backfired in a hurry. Yeah.
Abort mission, fucking send the belt back. Fuck them. You know what I mean? But instead he let them walk around. Flair had the title. They blurted out. They did the whole thing. So it was a constant reminder to WCW that Flair fucked you. You let him go.
Right.
He took the belt. It was just a constant, fucking total WCW. LOL WCW.
Man. Ooh, WCW. After Luger won the title, his first major challenge came from Ron Simmons at a signing ceremony for their title match at Halloween Havoc of 91. In a 2 out of 3 falls match, there was a controversial angle where Luger invited Simmons, once his challenge has been turned back, to join his entourage, but as a chauffeur. Not cool, Luger. But that's definitely heel heat right there. Luger went on to retain the championship in the match by 2 falls to 1. Eventually, Luger began.
Yeah, if you go back and watch,
I don't remember this match at all.
It was excellent. It was a great story they told. They were airing video packages of Ron Simmons going back to his alma mater, running up the stairs to train or whatever. And Dusty, who was Booker at the time, said, I'll come back in your corner because I'm a former world champion. And it helped Simmons, who didn't really have a good face character yet. But this is why I like what they did with Luger, because they could have easily just tried to line up heels for him, which maybe on the surface seems like what they should do, but that would be copying who again? WWF. So let's not do that. So they made Luger heel, and they started trying to make faces and make better people to challenge Luger. And this was a year before Simmons won the title, by the way.
I was gonna say Simmons was on his way to winning it too.
Yeah, so they kind of gave Simmons a singles voice here and kind of figured him out a little bit. And Dusty was in the corner. The story they told was great. It was awesome. I really love their Halloween Havoc match, 2 out of 3 falls in 91. I thought it was really excellent. And I remember as a fan going okay, Great American Bash was just fucking horrible. But I was they were trying here. Also at Halloween Havoc, Rick Rude debuted and Paulie Dangerously started the Dangerous Alliance. And so I remember the end of WCW, Luger was a part of that run where I was like, I like what they're doing. I think this is fantastic. So this match at Halloween Havoc is definitely, I'm not saying the whole pay-per-view is good because they also have the Chamber of Horrors, which is terrible. But I mean, this was a really good match, and I loved what they did with Luger and Simmons here. It was excellent.
Coming from the college ranks, the foundation in WCW. He's got him up, and he caught him in the attitude adjustment. That's the pile driver. And he got him. Oh my.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the third and deciding fall, and still World Heavyweight Champion, the Total Package, Lex Luger!
Eventually, Luger began to have his own issues with WCW, and the contract he had seemed to have him wrestling less
Herd's a moron.
and less while still collecting money. After ending his feud with Simmons, Luger had a brief feud with Rick Steiner, defeating him on the November 19th Clash of Champions 17. Luger's contract only required him to work a specific number of dates, and having fulfilled them, he sat out the end of 1991 and the beginning of 92, aside from one title defense against Masaru Chono at WCW New Japan Super Show 2, that was Starrcade in Tokyo Dome. Luger did not wrestle a match until Super Brawl 2, where he lost the WCW title to Sting in February of that year. I just have to say, too, we can't really see it. Maybe Jess might want to share it. I don't know. But Jess always likes to put a nice photo of who we're talking about at the bottom of the notes. And, yeah, Luger is just absolutely shredded, and the title looks perfect on him, whatever title that is. And is it the U.S. title? I'm not sure.
No, that's the new WCW title.
That was the new WCW
once it was
title?
finished, and that's an underrated championship belt. I love that belt.
It actually looks really good. It looks really good.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking, I'm like, dude, The guy's just
it's winged eagle-esque, but it's not. It's obviously not.
It's actually very. It's
got a very nice dynamic front
very
with a blue
distinct
globe
and it looks like it's built for his waist. If that makes sense, it just looks amazing. And I'm like, damn, dude, like
heavyweight belts with the earth in the middle of it always are good. Like
right.
Because you're world champion, the earth, you champion the earth.
Earth or a bird, bro.
So when you have a blue
bird in there, you know.
I don't know. I like this year about Luger in a weird way. Like it was kind of like Bret Hart. We did Bret Hart in 1992, where it was like at the beginning of the year he was the secondary champion, and by the end of the year he was world champion. And like it just Bret I think was more of a dark horse because nobody saw his world title coming. But ironically, Flair was involved in both. And I think that's fucking weird. And like it's really, really, really weird.
You know,
and Flair's leaving caused the other one to happen, and it's just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, it's really weird.
We play the fantasy booking on it, but imagine if Flair was able to drop the title to Luger and it was a double turn, and then Flair can just disappear because he was going anyway. But then Luger does that double turn set, and Flair's gone, and then you get that rub that away. Man, I don't know. I mean, it could have been huge.
That's 1,000% like, and that's Jim Hurt's fault again. Like, he just didn't have the foresight to figure any of that shit out. Like, I felt I liked this year, and I think Luger's underappreciated. And we did
100% right.
We did the legacy of him when we were on audio, never on video. So I get to post cool pictures of bloated Luger at the end of '91, getting ready for his WBF run.
Just massive, bro. Yeah, WBF, that's right. I forgot about that. For audio fans, give us a listen to Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019, or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. For Jess, Craig, and myself, this is the O.W.P. signing off. Have a good one.